Okay, so first of all, you will have to clone this repository, this very repository. Go here and clone this repository. Clone it into your projects folder. Clone it into your projects folder, right? When you clone, then you do log into AWS using AWS configure. Use your credentials to log in. Put in your access key and secret ID, secret key. So when you do that, you cd into full. First of all, we want to create a Jenkins server because this pipeline we want to run, it's Jenkins that will enable the building of the application, the testing of the application, the deployment of the application. Jenkins is what will enable that to happen. While Terraform is going to be used to create the to create the infrastructure, such as the EC2 instances, the S3 bucket. Terraform will be used to create that, the infrastructure. While Jenkins will be used to do the continuous integration and delivery. We used to for building, testing, and deploying. Then Ansible will be used for configuration management. Ansible will be used for configuration management to deploy our software application into our EC2 instances, into our servers. So we will have three servers, three EC2 instances, three servers. One will be used for the database, one will be used for the Node.js, which is a backend, and the other will be used for the front end, which is a React which is written in React, right? So each of the applications will be containerized, and the containers will then be pushed. The containers will be pushed into AWS ECR, that's Elastic Container Registry. And then from container registry, they will be pulled by each of these, the images will be pulled by each of these servers, right? And will be used to, Jenkins will then be used to build the application in each of the servers. So for the database will be built, the backend Node.js will be built, and the front end. You can see the Ansible part here, the Ansible playbook. That's what we call playbook. This is the Ansible playbook, right? First of all, it will install Docker and config. This is what it will run for all the three instances, for all the three servers, right? That's why you have this star here for all of them. Then for each of them, it will install the various container images. It will pull the various container images. For example, the Postgres server will pull that of the Postgres image, that of the Node.js will pull that of the Node.js, and that of the React will pull that of the React. So you can go ahead to study this on your own, to study more about this, but I will just quickly run you through the practicals, right? So that when you want to do the practical, you'll easily be able to do it. So this is our Jenkins UI, which we will run, and then this is the application that will be deployed, right? We'll be accessing the application on port 3000. So first of all, let's create our Jenkins server. Normally, you could have created it manually. You go to your EC2. You go to your EC2. You can create your EC2 instance and install Jenkins on it. But in our case, we'll be using Terraform. But let me just show you how you can do it if you want to do. So I'm using my region, I specified this. US East 1. Let me see. US East 1. This network, this is my network, but it's slow. I'll just manage it, sure. Let it come up.
Is the Terraform file, is it in good ones? And what we just clone? Terraform file used to create the.
Yes. So, if you want to start to do it manually, right, you would look. Are you paying attention? You will name this Jenkins server. You choose an image. Normally, you should choose Amazon Linux, but here you should be careful. Here, you see Amazon Linux 2023. If you use this, you will have some issues installing Jenkins, right? I don't think Jenkins has been made compatible with this particular AMI. So choose Amazon Linux 2, which is this, right? Then you configure for networking, leave everything as default. For security group, choose an existing security group. For my case, I already have an existing security group, which is called Jenkins SG. This security group has ingress for HTTP port 8080 and SSH port 22. You can also add port HTTP port 80 if you want, but Jenkins uses port 8080. Jenkins runs on port 8080. So make sure that you open up port 8080 in your ingress security group, right? So in my case, I have it here. Okay, I already named the Jenkins SG. So I will choose it. Do we get what I just said? Do we get what I need you to respond. Do you get what I just said? I said that the security group you are going to choose here. Let me open it up. Let me go back to EC2. Let me go to EC2. Why that is coming up? So while that is coming up, let's move on. So for storage, you leave the default instance store. Then there's one other thing you will need to do, right? Which is under advanced details. Other advanced details, you need to add an instance profile, an IAM instance profile. If you don't add this, you will have an error when you try to run your Jenkins, because Jenkins needs some permissions. Jenkins needs some permissions to run, and if you don't have those permissions, it will not run. Okay, and those permissions, let me just show you again. From this network is slow, honestly. And this is my own personal network. So let me go to IAM. I want to show you the permissions that Jenkins needs to be able to run successfully. Okay, so for the IAM instance profile, you will be adding a role you have created already, an IAM role you have created already. You'll be adding it. So in my case, I have already created the IAM role. and I name it my EC2TF. You can name it anything you want, but make sure that you add these policies, such as Amazon EC2 full access, IAM full access, Amazon EC2 container registry full access, and Amazon S3 full access. If you don't have these policies attached to this row, you may encounter error when you try to use your Jenkins server to run the pipeline. So in my case, I have see it's here to come up. It needs to come up here, then I'll select it. So for the IAM instance profile, you attach a row. In my case, I am attaching the already pre-created my EC2 TF row, which I have here. My EC2 TF row, and I attach certain policies, right? So when you do that, you can go ahead to launch the instance. When you launch the instance, you SSH into it and you install Jenkins. When you install Jenkins, you then install the other things like Ansible, because in this lab, in this demo, we'll be making use of Ansible. So you need to install Ansible, you install Terraform, install Docker, and AWS CLI. So those are the things you need to install on the Jenkins server. That is if you are doing it manually. But to make things easier for us, we already have it as a Terraform configuration, right? So all those things we're supposed to install, we have put everything in a bash script, right? Everything is already in a bash script. Oops. So if you check the, so continuing, if you check the main.tf, please let's pay attention. You will see that an EC2 instance is being provisioned, right? And ingress port 22 and port 8080 is going to be opened up. Our ingress traffic, right? Port 22 and port 8080 to the internet. Then an IAM row is created, right? And this is the name. This is the inline policy, right? That is attached to the row, and the name is EKS policy. In my case, if you are doing it manually, I named mine ACR custom policy. That's if you are doing it manually. But in the case of this particular configuration, they name it EKS policy. Then these are the policies, the managed policies that we attach to our row, right? You can see it there. The 4 managed policies. That is what we attach here. You can see them. The container registry full access, Amazon EC2 full access, IAM full access, and Amazon S3 full access. Without these managed policies attached, your Jenkins might encounter error. Your pipeline might encounter error. So we also reference we created a resource of instance profile. That's IAM instance profile. And this is the name we gave it, right? And then we reference the template data, which we have outside this particular file, which is a user data.sh. So see, this is the main.tf file, which will create the instance and attach the row that we define to it. The same thing you would have done here manually, right? The same thing you have done here manually. You can just use Terraform to do it automatically. So if you wish, you can do something here, right? You can change the variable, which you will need to do. Let me show you how to do it. So you can change, so you don't need to share, but if you wish, you can change this Jenkins to any other name you want. But it's best, since it's Jenkins server, so the Jenkins will be our prefix. What this does is that in this main.tf, where you defined the AWS instance resource, you gave it a name, right? You gave it a name, which is a tag of name, and you saw they put var.prefix. It's saying you don't want to hard code the name. Normally you could have just put the name here, but you don't want to hard code the name. You want the name to be reusable, to be changeable, right? So you put it in a variable file, right? Put it in a variable file. The same thing here. This AWS security group, you could just put Jenkins SG here, but because you don't want to hard code this into the file, you want to be able to change it anytime you want, right? That's why you extracted this. You now put it as a variable dot prefix, right? And then you defined your variables in your variable dot tf. If you don't know about Terraform, you need to learn more about it to understand these things. So here you define your prefix. Here you define your SSH key name. This SSH key name is the one you created here. If you go to key pairs, you can create key pair and you name your key pair, right? When you name your key pair here, you choose .pem, .pem, right? You can also choose .ppk if you are using Windows, but because we'll be using Linux, our SSH purpose, and WSL in your case, if you are using WSL, it's best to use your .pem, right? Then you do create key pair. That will now download the key pair. But in my case, I already have my demo KP here, right? So when that gets downloaded, right, what you can do is you can create a folder and call it DevOps. That's under you can put it in any of the folder. You can put it under downloads, you can put it under documents, right? Are we following? So in my case, I created a folder under documents. I named it DevOps. I created another folder and named it AWS. This is what I mean. My documents, DevOps, right? AWS. So where my key pair will be downloaded to downloads, right? I will just copy it or cut it and come and paste it in this AWS folder. So when I do that, then I'll be able to have this key part. So this is my SSH private key part. You can do anything here. You can put it under downloads and then just have one more directory and then put your key pair, or you follow this. But if you want to do it, make sure that you create a directory, name it DevOps, and create another directory under DevOps directory, name it AWS, right? Name it AWS, and under AWS directory, paste the key pair or copy or cut the key pair from the downloads folder and take it to the AWS directory, right? Right? Okay, so having done that now, we can go ahead to run our Terraform script. So to do that, I will first of all, okay, I'm recording already. To do that, I will cd into the Jenkins, this particular folder, this one here. I'll cd into this folder, right? I'll cd into it. If I don't cd into it, I cannot run the script in it, right? So just cd into Jenkins server. So in your case, you might have to run. First of all, you need to make sure that you install Terraform. If you have not installed it, you need to install it. Then you might need to run.
I see that last code that has the part for the SS.
So if you have not installed Terraform, you have to do that. Then you do Terraform init, right? Terraform init to initialize the repository, right? After which you do Terraform validate. Validate it tells me there is an error somewhere. Okay, let me just correct that. Okay, I think I need to do Terraform init first. Let me initialize the repository. So it will initialize the repository. That's this particular repository in this folder, right? Not this general one, no, this particular one, because we currently seed into this. So when it initialize, you can now do Terraform validate to validate that everything you have there is correct. Valid is successful, right? What it means is that all that I have in my Jenkins server, all these files I have there, they are valid. There's no mistake. That's what this means, right? So with this now, I can go ahead to run my Terraform apply. You can also do Terraform plan to see the things that will be created, the resources that will be created. But in my case, I'll just go straight to do Terraform apply. So add an auto approve so that it won't ask you for approval when the stuff is running. So I do a Terraform apply, and that begins to create the infrastructure. It begins to create. First, you can see that it's reading from the user data that we have, right? This particular user data is reading from there. For you to install all of these softwares and packages. And then it's creating the other resources such as the security group, the instance profile, and so on and so forth. Right? So let's just allow this to complete. So when it completes, it will give out an output, because in this case now we define our output.tf. Our output.tf, we said we want Terraform to output the Jenkins server URL, SSH command, and the Jenkins password retriever. These are the things we want Jenkins to output, right? So you can see these are the things it outputted, right? Those three things we wanted in our output we defined. These are the things it outputted. Okay, so our instance has finished creating, and we have it as an SSH command. And we have the output here, right? So what we can do to make this easier for us, right? The output command has already outputted the SSH command we need to run, right? So we'll just copy it, right? See it, copy it, paste it on the command line, and enter. That's you say yes, and that is it. You have SSH into the instance, right? To confirm that Jenkins has been installed, you do which Jenkins. See, it shows you the path to where the directory was installed, which is usr/bin/Jenkins. To also confirm that the other things were installed, such as the Ansible, to confirm that Ansible was installed, that was installed as the EC2 instance got created. You can also do which Ansible. If it's not installed, it will tell you Ansible's not found. So. But because it's already installed, that's why it's showing you the path. Same thing for Docker. Let's check for Docker. So you see that they are all installed, right? All the things we defined in our user data.sh, right? Right? Next, let's log into our Jenkins. So it already outputs the URL for us, right? The URL with the port 8080. So let me copy that and paste it on a command, our web URL, our web browser. When you do that, it brings up the Jenkins UI. You copy it. Our output has already given us the Jenkins retrieval, the password retrieval, right? So, but let me copy from here, right? Copy this and then come to the command line on the EC2 instance. Do sudo cat and put that command. So you want to get the initial password. So Jenkins, when you create Jenkins for the first time, to give you an initial password that you can use to log in. When you log in, you ask it to now create your own password, right? So this is the initial password that it gives you. Copy it and paste it on this thing and continue. Then you do install suggested plugin. So this will install all the suggested plugin from Jenkins. So all the plugins it will install. Okay. So while that is being created, the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to now, when we get into our Jenkins server, we will start doing the pipeline configuration, right? We will now we will see the out of this directory. Then so just follow on. I think we are getting it up to this point.
Please, how many people are following, please?
If there's something you are not getting, if you don't say it, I will not know.
People are not following all this stuff.
But we all got it up to the point of creating the Jenkins server, right?
Yes.
You can see how I was able to create the Jenkins server.
Did you create a name? You are there.
So now I am now I have logged into the Jenkins. It's not asking me for the username and password. So don't worry, I'm recording it. You can go through the recording again. You can see I'm recording it, right? So you give it any username of your choice. In my case, I'll just put my name. Password, choose a password of your choice and repeat the password again. Then you're asking for a full name, but you don't need to add a full name. For email address, since this is a demo, right? So they will not be disturbing you with plenty emails. You can just use any dummy email, right? Any dummy email. Then do save and continue. Then save and finish. Jenkins is ready. Start using Jenkins. So now we have configured Jenkins on our EC2 instance, on our EC2 server, right? We have done that now. So the next thing is to now go on that Jenkins, click on manage Jenkins, then manage plugins. So we want to install some plugins, right? Those plugins that we have on our userdata.sh, we have installed it on a machine, but we need to install it as plugins on Jenkins. So let's do that. We'll install Docker, Ansible, and Terraform. Those are the 3 plugins we are going to install, right?
Yes.
So go to click on available plugins and then you do Terraform. Click the button, install without restart. That will install the Terraform plugin. That's successful. Next, let's install Ansible. Ansible plugin. So not this, the Ansible, not the Ansible tower. Ansible. Install without restart. That is successful. Let's install the third one. Depending on the project you are doing, you may need to install more plugins. But in my case, I just need to install those 3 plugins. The third one is the Docker plugin. Docker plugin.
At this point, I ask question.
Hmm?
Yes. At this point, I now ask question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why do you need to install Docker while working with Jenkins?
Plugin. Why do you need to install Docker plugin?
Yes, sir. While working with Jenkins.
No, the Jenkins is going to run a pipeline. That pipeline is defined in the Jenkins file. This is a Jenkins file.
So is it more of container like Docker?
Yes. There's a we say what?
I say it's more of containerization like the Docker, the Jenkins.
See, our Jenkins is going to run Docker. If you see the pipeline, you will see there's a point where you are going to use Docker to build the image. You are building an image. This image you store it on Amazon ECR. You create an ECR repository, right? Then you build an image from the Docker file. Look at this Docker file here. So what we did was we containerized each of the application. So Postgres, look at our PostgreSQL, right? This is the init.sql. That's the dump. See, if you want to create a database, the same database you have running on a particular website, you want to replicate this to another website, right? What you do is you create a dump of that database, like a copy of that database. You now export it to the location where you want to use it. Then from there, you can now run that dump and use it to create the database. So that's what they did here. They just created a dump of the database. The database name is Claros to do, and the table is called to do, and it has to do ID and description, right? Just like we have here. Just like we have here. Description, right? So this is the database table that we have. What happened was we have a Docker file for our Postgres. We have a Docker file for our Node.js. Docker file for Node.js. We have the Docker file for our React, right? Those Docker file is what we will use Docker to create a container. We use it to create a container. That's what this particular part is doing in the Jenkins file. In the Jenkins file, this part, you can see it. This part of push image to ECR. We are using build app Docker images. We are using Docker to build those Docker files into images, right? And when that is done, we will now then Jenkins will push those images to ECR, Elastic Container Registry. Just like we have Docker Hub. Docker Hub we use to store Docker images, right? On Amazon, they have their own proprietary Docker Hub, which you can use to store your Docker images, and which is ECR, Elastic Container Registry. You can see Docker. So for you to be able to use Docker on Jenkins, you need to install Docker plugin. Do you get that now?
Okay. So this is good now. Then what is the major role of Jenkins?
The role of Jenkins is for running the pipeline. So you want to do some things. Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
You want to do some things and you don't want to do it manually. You want a system that can help you do those things automatically. Therefore, you use an open source tool called Jenkins. That Jenkins,
Automatic deployment.
yes, automatic integration and delivery, and also deployment.
Okay.
Deployment is if you are pushing it directly to production. Delivery is that you are not pushing directly to production, but you are having a production like kind of this thing. Just with a one more approval step, you can push to production. So the Jenkins file is what will contain the steps that Jenkins will run through to be able to carry out. For instance, the first step here is to create the infrastructure for the application, in which we use Terraform to do that, right? We use Terraform to create infrastructure. The three EC2 instances, we use Terraform to create it. The next step will be to create the EC2 ECR repository, where we will store our Docker images. That is what we did here. The next step is to substitute Terraform output into the .env files. That is what is done here, right? Next step will be to build the app Docker images, in which we use Docker to build the three. You can see we built 3 images here, right? The one for the Postgres, the one for the Node.js, and the React. Then we push the Docker images to ECR, the Elastic Container Registry repository, right? After which we add the step for waits for this to make sure that our instances are ready, are in running state, before we can then deploy the application. Okay, before we can deploy the application. So we deploy the application. That's where we made use of Ansible. We made use of Ansible to deploy the application. So this Ansible is going to read from a playbook, what we call playbook. That playbook has been defined here. You can see it. So this is the playbook that Ansible will run through, right? This is a playbook to run through. There's also what we call inventory, right? Inventory is where you summarize what you want to do. For example, if you check our inventory here, inventory aws.yaml, you will see that our plugin here, we are using AWS EC2. We define the tag. So this is a tag, this is the instances. All the instances that have this tag, that the ones Ansible will target our playbook on. So our playbook, we want Ansible to install those packages, install all those things, those applications, those softwares on our server, on our EC2 instances, right? Then we need to tell Ansible which of the EC2 instances or servers it should deploy those applications or those softwares to. So that's what we did here by using a tag stack. You can see here we have Jenkins project here. Why we have this is that we already tag all the EC2 instances that we created earlier. We tag them with this particular tag, Jenkins project. Let me show you. So if you go to your main.tf, you scroll down to where we created the instance here. Where is it? You scroll down. Where is it again? Okay, here. You can see AWS instance, where we created our instance, right? Where we define our instance resource. You can see under tags, we added what? Where is it? Under tag, Jenkins server, right? Oh, yes. Under stack, yeah, we defined a variable, right? We define a variable var.prefix, right? So if we go to variables file here, we define our prefix as what? Jenkins project, right? So Ansible is going to target all the instances that have the tag of Jenkins project, and that's what we defined in the inventory file. This inventory file here, you can see it, Jenkins project. So all the instances that have Jenkins project Ansible will target them and run that playbook on them, right?
Suppose, where is it specified that the servers run
R3.
yes.
We didn't specify that here. We just need to specify the tag we attach to.
Yeah, but in that Terraform file, I didn't see where specified that we. So when
Okay,
you
in the main.tf for the Terraform.
when you SSH, you really SSH into one instance.
No, that's for Jenkins. This one now is for the things that are running, being provisioned on Jenkins. These ones are going to be provisioned on Jenkins server.
On Jenkins,
Yes, on the Jenkins pipeline. This one that here, this one that we have gone into. That's where these other ones here, apart from this Jenkins server here, these other ones here will run on
the Jenkins
this Jenkins server.
and the Jenkins, so telling the incidents and instance, right?
Here, no. In our main.tf here, we specify 3. If you check our instance here, you can see count 3. Yes, count 3. You are saying you should create 3 copies of this. Right, and that's what it will do. Okay, so now that we've created our Jenkins server and Jenkins, we've installed the plugins. The next thing for us to do is we'll go back to manage Jenkins. We'll go to global tool configuration. Then we will need to specify the path, right, to those softwares that we already installed, right, such as the Terraform, the Ansible, and the Docker. Those 3 plugins that we installed on Jenkins, that we also installed on our server, our S2 instance. We will need to, like, when you did which Ansible, it shows you the path where it's installed, right? You can all see that it's always under usr/bin, right? They are all under usr/bin, right? So here, if you go here, you will see that our Ansible, Docker, and Terraform plugins have been installed, but we need to now add them, right? We need to add them. If we did not install those plugins, if we come here, we will not see. We will only see the ones that are there by default, which is the Gradle, the Ants, the Maven. These plugins are used for Java-based applications, but we are not doing a Java-based application, so we don't need to configure them. But here we've installed Ansible, Docker, and Terraform. So now we need to add those plugins so that Jenkins will know that we have already installed them on our server. So it will just reference the particular one that is already on our server, right? To reference it. So here we can name it Ansible. You can name it whatever you want, but to make it easier, you name it the name of that particular software. Then you specify the path, right? In our case, it's usr/bin, right? You don't need to add Ansible. If you add Ansible, it will throw error when you are running your pipeline, right? You already just put up to the bin, right? Because when you get to that bin, it will search for Ansible, and if it sees it, it will use it. So you don't need to add Ansible to that, right? You do apply. You apply. You do for Docker also. Docker, you add the installation root as usr/bin. That has successful. Then you add for Terraform. You can install automatically if you want, right? But because we have installed it on our server, our instance already, let's just reference it, the one we have there, right? Still in the same usr/bin directory. You apply.
But if you install it,
Apply and save.
if you install automatic, does it go to that usr/bin?
Yes, it goes there. But since we have already installed there, we just tell it that we have installed it here. No need to install automatically anymore for us. Okay, so having done that, we can go ahead now to um, we can go ahead now to add our item, the application we want to run, right? So in this case, our application is to do app. You can name it whatever else you want, but because what we want to do is a to do app, not just a simple to do app where you be able to put some figures, say, put in some figure and submit, right? Where is it? Where is that my talk here? Right? A simple to do app, right? Simple to do app. Put in figure here, a text here, and then you add. Okay, so to do app, it's going to be a pipeline. You can also do multi-branch pipeline, because but in our case, it's just a simple pipeline, right? Do OK, click OK, and that will create the that will give you to take you to another page where you can configure the application. That's you want to tell Jenkins that this is where the source code is, right? So that when you are running, pick the source code from this place, right? And because it's a GitHub project, we click the GitHub project here, right? If it's not a GitHub project, we can leave this. It's a GitHub project. Let's click the GitHub project. Then you put in your GitHub URL, right? This URL here, you copy it and bring it there to paste it. Then you click on advanced and put in a display name. In my case, I still want to name it to do app as a display name. So that's the name it to display. Can do apply because this thing can be giving error a lot. Like you see, so when you are doing it, when you have that error, just
Is it a network?
I don't really know. I think it has to do with Jenkins. No, it's not a production this thing. So this thing is not very this thing. So can bring so you just go back and redo something, right? I'm even surprised. No, it's not bringing error that HTTP error this thing. But it may still bring up as we go on. So you have put the GitHub URL under GitHub project. I put in the display name. Next you specify the pipeline. So if you have a pipeline script, right, you can just come here and paste it, right? Well, our pipeline script is in our GitHub, right, which is in the Jenkins file. So this is the file that Jenkins will be looking at. This is our Jenkins. It will be searching for this file in our GitHub. So let me specify that it's from an SCM. Now, SCM is a source code management, right? A kind of version control system, right? Source code management, version control system, such as Git. Git is an example of version control system, right? VCS, version control system. So SCM, specify a pipeline script from SCM, and we now specify Git as our SCM, right? Then we'll specify the repository, same repository there. So if your GitHub repository is a public repository, such as mine, you don't have to configure credentials here. Just leave it as none, right? Because Jenkins will be able to access it. But if it's a private directory, a private repository, right? If this is a private repository, you will need to now configure the credential here, where you need to add the username for your GitHub. That's the username you use to log in, and the password.
The password now using token or because
Use token.
okay.
Use token. You can also use password, but that when I tried for the password, when I was doing the one for a private this, when I used password, it was giving me some error. So if you have token, that's just best and straightforward. Just put in your token here. It will recognize it and it will use it. Right? So having done that, let's go to the next one. So you specify the branch, okay? So here you can specify main, right? You can see that what we have, the branch we are targeting is the main branch, right? So it's the main branch, right? The main branch. What other thing? The script part is the Jenkins file, right? This is what it will be looking out for in our GitHub repository. So when you do that, apply. I'm so surprised this is not giving error. Then you save. You
There's
save.
one question, maybe I'm taking us a little bit back.
Before you ask the question, so now when you click that save, it will bring you to this page. You can see here you have GitHub there. If you click this GitHub, you will see that to take you to your GitHub repo. So it has grabbed the GitHub URL and it has grabbed the repository, right? I grab the repository. So before we start building our pipeline, there's one other thing we need to do. So ask your question before we go on.
I want to
Okay, so let's move on. Before we start running our pipeline now, there are a few other things we need to do so that we don't have error. Although at the end of the day, we may have an error for when we run our pipeline, but it's something that we'll be able to know what to do, right? Because I've done it before. I know what to do. But in order for not to have an error, there are some things we must do. For example, if you look at our pipeline here, and if you look at our repo here, if you check the main.tf, you will see that a backend, an S3 backend was referenced, right? An S3 backend was referenced. The reason for backend is to store remote state so that anything you are doing, if you are working with a colleague, right, that is also making use of that Terraform configuration, when there are changes that are made, the colleagues will be able to see those changes, right? So whatever, if you people are 4 or 5, whatever change any of you make, other people will see the change. Just like GitHub, for instance, where if all of you are working, if all of you are added to that GitHub, maybe it's a private repository, all of you are added, then any change that is made, other people will be able to see it because they are all in the same organization on the GitHub, right? So what the state is able to do is to control. If you are the only one that is working on that project, you may not need this state file. But because you may be working with other people and your project may be complex, for you to be able to manage the changes that takes place when you make changes, for you to be able to manage, for Terraform to be able to manage those changes and store it in a state file, you need to configure a backend.
So everything goes into the S3.
Yes, all you are doing, all you are running on Terraform is being saved in an S3 bucket. Yes, so that when you lose the file, your Terraform script, you can go to your S3 bucket and reproduce it from the S3 bucket.
So that means in this provision, S3 provision also.
No. I wanted to show you how to, because if you run this script now, without first of all provisioning this, to show you an error. So I want to show you how you can, already you know how to create the S3 bucket. So let me just show you how you go about it in this case, right? Are we paying attention? See, you can explain all that to him later. You just pay attention to understand it first, right? You will have all the time to, I will expect each of you to do this particular stuff, right? Each of you in the DevOps this thing, whether you have an account on it or not. I need to see each of your work, right? So this is the bucket name. So I'll go to AWS. I'll go to S3. What's that? I'll go to S3. Where is it? What's going on now? So I'll create an S3 bucket. I'll name it this name. You can name it any other name you want, right? But me, I'm naming it this name. Then I will choose the US East 1 region, which is Virginia. So let that come up. So create buckets. Okay, so in my case, I already have the bucket, right? Can see it. I didn't remember to delete it. CW to do app, right? And it's a US one, right? Can see it backend. That's where the remote state to be stored. The remote state of what I've been doing before. So it should load now.
So does that mean Terraform provision is S3 bucket for you?
No, I said you provision it yourself manually. Yes, I said this one I've already created before because I've done it created before.
And you reference it?
Yes, so this Terraform script will reference this packet to store whatever you are doing here, whatever you're provisioning here. You store it here.
Then it's possible that if I've not created that bucket and then run this code, it might still throw error.
Error, yes, it will throw error.
So why are we not creating the S3 bucket using Terraform?
Yes, that's fine.
We can, but it will be on a separate file. It won't be on this particular file. It will be on a separate file.
Like a space before that one.
Yes.
You just create.
I said we can.
What?
It won't be on this particular script. To be on another folder. You can just put another folder and call it S3 backend, right? But because it's just one thing I want to create, instead of having a folder for it, I just want to create it manually. Very simple. So that's what I just go ahead to do here.
But what if you put it when we're provisioning that S3? I mean, the EC2.
You can also do it like that if you want. But the EC2 needs to be created. So that when you are running the Jenkins EC2 server, right? You can also create it's the same thing. You can also do that. Then you now reference the name in the script, right? So here, what you simply do is you go to create bucket. I'm showing you how you can create the bucket. You already know how to create it now. Right? You put the bucket name. You choose the region. In my case, US is one. You don't need to specify any other thing here. You just click create bucket, right? So there you will see. So now I've created the buckets, and then I'm referencing the name of the bucket, right? This other one you can leave it like this. This is simply the key, the backend. You know that we saw backend, then we saw TF backend. So this is the name of the file, .tf state. If we go back to the stuff, you see that the file there is a .tf state file, backend.tf state. Can you see it? This is the file.
So right now the TF, that's the file.
Yes.
It's not. Can you just define it in our local?
Local what?
Local.
You can download it if you want.
Okay, I mean, normally when you deploy provision using Terraform, you have .txt file.
Yes.
Beside where you.
Yes. Yes, that one is for local. You can have a .txt for local when you have your local.
Yes.
And
that's the same file that was sent to us.
Yes. The same file that was sent to S3. You understand? Like in this case now. In this case for the Jenkins now, where is it? You can see .txt there, right? Terraform.txt. That's where it's going to store the states for this for that particular Jenkins server, right? Plenty less. You don't need to bother yourself about that. Let Terraform figure that out, right? Please let's reduce the noise so that this my recording will not be too noisy. So we've provisioned the S3 bucket. The other thing we will need to do here is that we will need to. So if we look at the Jenkins file, so I think I've run through this particular part. So if you check the Jenkins file, right, we define some environment variables, right, which you can change. For example, you can change the region to whatever region you want. You can change the app repo name. You can. Are we paying attention? You can change the app repo name. You can also change the app name if you want, right? So that the environment variable you define. Then these are the stages that Jenkins will run through, right? Stages it will run through. Now, there's something you need to know here. When it comes to that part of deploy the app, we define a credentials ID, and I want to show you how you will do that. This credentials ID, right? Because without this credentials ID, this particular portion will fail, right? This Jenkins, this Ansible playbook, it's going to run an Ansible inventory, which we define here as inventory AWS EC2.yaml, right? And then it's going to on all the inventory that are defined here. It will run this particular playbook, the playbook.yaml, right? To run this playbook. So in order for this portion not to fail, you have to define the credentials ID. And that credentials ID is the key pair that was defined when you were creating the instance. The key pair that was defined when you were creating instance. If I go back to
the EC2 instance.
Yes, this particular EC2 instance that will be created using Terraform initially in this our initial Terraform init part that we run on Jenkins. This part. Now this Terraform apply now. It will create this EC2, all the EC2 instances, all the resources defined in the main.tf here, right? It will create it. So if you look through, you will see that we have we define a key pair name. Can you see it? Key pair name, and we pass it as a variable, which is var.ssh key name, right? SSH key name. And if we go to our variables.tf, where we define our variables SSH key name, we indicated key pair, demo key pair, right? So we're telling it that reference the demo key pair name for our SSH key name, right? So now I want to show you how you will do it on the Jenkins. So in my case, I'll have to change. Okay, let me show you now. Let me show you now what you will do. So you go to the Jenkins, go to credentials, click this particular up button here, credentials, then you go to system, global credentials, add credentials. So on that kind, there are a lot of options, right? You can also have more options depending on the plugins you added to your Jenkins. So in our case, what we want to add is a username with private key. Our private key is our key pair, right? So you click that. The scope, leave it as global. The ID, this is where you would indicate the name that you indicated in your Jenkins file here. This Jenkins file here, where you this ID is where you this name you use here. Like in my case, I use TechCross, right? You can see it's TechCross. So therefore, I will indicate the ID here as what? TechCross. I'm coming to that. I'm just showing you the ID. That's credentials ID. The ID can be any name, right? Any name you wish, but it must be the one you indicated here, right? TechCross. Then next, the username. The username for our instance is EC2 user, because the instance is it's an EC2. It's an Amazon Linux type of instance, right? If you check the main.tf here, the AMI, if you check it, you will see that it's an AMI for EC2, Amazon EC2 AMI, right? So the user will usually be EC2-user, right? The username will usually be user. If it's an Ubuntu type of Linux distro, the username will usually be what? Ubuntu. But you can also specify in your Terraform this thing to say, I want my user to be what? My username to be specified the name, right? So that name you specify will now override the default username. But in this case now, we are not overriding the username. We are using the default username, right? So our default username for EC2 for Amazon Linux 2 is what? Our default username for Amazon Linux 2 is what? So here would indicate EC2 user. Then the private key. Look, the private key will paste it here. Our private key is demo keeper, right? So you go to where you have your demo keeper, click it, or you can open it with a notepad. So what you want to do is to copy all the content you have here, right from the dash sign from begin RSA private key. Copy it down to the last this thing there, right? Copy, then paste it in that private key this thing, right? Paste it there, then you create.
So in this case, there's no way we can reverse it.
We can
Reverse it like /this/that, go to that directory.
no. You have to paste it into this thing, right? Now, so you have done that. So now when this Jenkins runs, when this Jenkins file runs, so when Jenkins is running and it looks through this Jenkins file, when it gets to that part where it has to reference this Terraform ID, it should just look through the Terraform ID, the one you've defined at Credential's side, right? To see the key pair, to see the username, it will be able to log in into the instances that were provisioned on this using this inventory that were referenced with this event. To be able to log into all these instances, those 3 instances that were created earlier, be able to log into it, and then it will now be able to run this inventory and this playbook on them, right? Okay, so having done that, we can go ahead now to run our pipeline. So click build now, and then so pay attention to so you can see it will start running through our Jenkins file and you start doing those things, right? So it's running through it, right? So this is the visual representation. We can check the console output for us to see the things that are being done. Just pay attention and see each and every line of what is being done. So first of all, you can see that it picks the Git repository, right? That my Git repository, right? And then it references the environment variables that are defined on the Jenkins file. These environment variables, right? It references them. So the things he did here, right? Then it started with the first stage, which is to creating infrastructure for the app on AWS, right? Create infrastructure like echo. This is what it echoed, creating infrastructure for the app on AWS cloud, right? And it did Terraform init, Terraform apply, right? So Terraform init, initialize successful, and then Terraform apply. If you did not create that S3 bucket initially, this part will fail, right? But because we have created the S3 bucket already, therefore it's able to read from the S3 bucket, right, for the remote state. And then Terraform applies now begins to run the stuff, right? You can see Terraform apply, right? Terraform apply auto approve. Then it begins to create all those infrastructure, all those resources that we indicated in the main.tf, right? All the resources we indicated in the main.tf, such as the resources such as the instance profile, IAM instance profile, the IAM instance, the security group, right? Those are the four resources that it's going to create. So you can see it. Instance profile is created. The access and the IAM role access is also created, right? You know, we also defined an IAM role in the main.tf. It's also created. Then the instance, the AWS instances, there are 3 that will be created, so it creates it. So let me run through down. So when Terraform finish provisioning the resources to go to the next stage, so it outputs the IPs, right? It outputs the IPs for the instances that were created, right? Oops, this thing is down. So it's going through the Jenkins file. It has done the part for the stage for creating of infrastructure for the app on AWS Cloud. Has gone through the stage for creating the ECR repository, the ECR repo for the app, which is where the Docker containers will be stored. Then substitutes the Terraform output. So the Terraform output that we get here, it substitutes it into the .env files. There's an .env files that it will substitute it to, and then it will run these commands, right? To run these commands. Now, next stage it will be to build the app images, the Docker images. So it will use Docker to build the images, right? Next will be to push to ECR repository, and that is what it does here, right? Build the image, right? Which is what it did here. It did for Postgres. It did for the node. It did for the other one. The last one there is where is it? Okay. So it did for the 3 of them, the 3 Docker files. It built the images, and then it pushes the app image to ECR repository, right? That's what it did here. Oh, there's one other thing I didn't do. Oops, Abi. I think there's one other thing I did not do. Okay. Now, when it pushes the images to ECR, right? It goes to the next stage, which is to wait the instance to be sure that the 3 EC2 instances that we have, they are all in the instance status of okay. They're all okay and running, right? It does that. So which is the next stage, waiting for the instance. And then it runs through all the 3 tags, the 3 instances with the tags value of Ansible _ Postgres, and to make sure that it's running. Okay. It's just for the one for the Postgres, just to make sure that the instance for the Postgres is running. So that's what he did here. We added it here to this wait for the instance to be sure that the instance for the running the Postgres database is running, and that returns an okay output. So next will be the next stage, which is the deploy stage. Deploy the app. So it will do ls-l to show all the files that are in that directory. Ansible fashion, Ansible inventory graph to show all the target instances, or target hosts, which is what he did here. First, it shows the files that are there, right? So the files, then the target hosts. You can see inventory, Ansible inventory graph. So it shows you that we have development. No, when we're creating instances, we tag development, right? Right? Look, in our main.tf, under the resource of now in our main.tf, under the resource of the instance, under tags, we added 3 tags, right? The first one is the name, which will reference the var.name, which we have defined in the variables. And see, in the variables we have name. Where is it? Let it come up. Yeah, names, right? So it should take name for var.name, so take for PostgreSQL, Node.js, and React. The other tag we define is the other tag we define is the stack, which also we define it as variable, as var.prefix, and the prefix we added was what? Jenkins server, right?
Yeah.
That's the prefix, so that's another tag. The other one is the environment, which is what? Development. So if you see that in the Jenkins file, it's able to now reference the environment. If in the Ansible inventory graph, it's able to tell us the tags that have been added to each of those instances. And like environment have 3 instances, right? Which are the 3 instances that were tagged with environment. We also remember that var.names for each name under the variables.tf, we saw name, and we saw Postgres, we saw Node.js, and we saw React, right?
Yes.
Hey. Why this other one is for the Jenkins server. The Jenkins server one that we defined, the var.prefix, right? To the Jenkins server, which we defined in this other place, in the inventory. Because if you look at the inventory here, we saw that we have EC2, AWS EC2, the plugin, and the tag that is working on is the instances with this tag, Jenkins project. Are we paying attention? We need to pay attention to these things, even if you don't understand it fully. Pay attention so that when you want to now do it, you will have the idea of what to do. This is a very powerful project. If you can do this, understand it, it's a very powerful one, because it's combined a lot of things. That is it. But get the concept now. I have been even recording it, so that by the time you are going through it, it will be easy for you to now flow, right? So you can see there that we have. So that's what Ansible inventory graph will show you. The next thing there is to now, so it will now run through. If you remember in our Jenkins file, after after Ansible graph inventory graph has run successfully, the next thing is now to run the Ansible playbook, and then we have indicated our credentials key, which we have defined already, right? Then we need to indicate our inventory file, where we then indicate our playbook. So what it will now do is that it will start running through the playbook. Thing is slow. It's slow, but let me just